Sitting in the darkness of Blombos Cave, South Africa, about 100,000 years ago, a Homo sapiens hand gently placed tiny seashells on the cave floor. On those shells, traces of bright red powder, ochre, shimmered in the flickering firelight. This wasn't just decoration. It was the mark of humanity's earliest art studio, a place where the first quiet sparks of creativity took shape. And even now, when we look at those shells through microscopes and chemical scans, we can still feel something strangely intimate, a primitive human gesture, almost like a message carried across time. I was here. I longed for beauty too. Not far from there, in Wonderwerk Cave, deep red ochre was found, heated, ground, prepared with intention. Another ancient workshop, a place where color, material, and imagination blended together, turning stone and shell into living canvases. They didn't use ochre only for decoration. They painted their bodies. They marked themselves for rituals never recorded, for stories never told. Each grain of red dust was a doorway into their inner world, a way to claim meaning in a universe where survival was a daily battle. Ochre, the deep red of hematite, was a mineral, but to Homo sapiens, it was something more. Ink, pigment, symbol, a medium for identity, a tool to express the invisible. They crushed it, mixed it with water, animal fat, tree resin, created shades from glowing scarlet to quiet, earthy crimson. Then they painted, on stone, on shell, on skin. It was a living studio, every mark carrying spirit, emotion, and story. But why red? Red, blood, fire, life, death, has always held power. To early Homo sapiens, it was a symbol of vitality, a bridge between the physical and the spiritual. When they wore that red powder, they were reminding themselves that they belonged to something larger, a vast, breathing universe, that every breath, every step on the earth carried a trace of meaning. These simple acts, grinding, mixing, painting, were inner rituals, moments of reflection, moments of connection between survival and imagination. And then we begin to wonder, do we today still have that same capacity for reflection, for meaning? When we scroll past images online, when we drown in layers of endless information, do we still stop and ask, what does this mean to me? Where is the human mark in all of this? 100,000 years ago, Homo sapiens found meaning in every grain of red earth. Do we still find meaning in the moments of our modern lives? The ochre marks in Blombos and Wonderwerk remind us of patience and contemplation. They ground the pigment, they mixed it slowly, they painted their bodies with care, each step deliberate, quiet, intentional. In today's world, we rush. We chase quick results. We forget the process, the slow, thoughtful path where meaning is born. But that process, unhurried, reflective, is what gives depth to our lives. It is what connects us to ourselves and to the world around us. Ochre is also a reminder of permanence. The marks they left were not for themselves alone, but for all who would come after. A message from the past. We existed, we dreamed, we created, we sought beauty. Standing before those red-stained shells, we can almost hear their quiet echo, a voice steady, soft, but heavy with meaning. Remember, humans are not only survivors, we are dreamers, shapers, seekers of beauty. And now when we look in the mirror, when we wear color, when we adorn ourselves, do we still see ourselves in those acts? Do our colors and decorations still reflect our spirit? Or have they become reflections of trends, of the crowd, of whatever the world tells us to be? The red earth of ancient caves still whispers, "What is beauty? Do you create to live or to be seen?" Perhaps the true gift ochre gave our ancestors was not its vibrant color, but its invitation to reflect, to connect with themselves, with their community, with the vastness above. Even now, in a world of noise, neon, and overflowing information, we can still find meaning in the simplest acts: a brush stroke, a shade of color, a quiet look, a moment of stillness. Homo sapiens ground the earth, mixed pigment, painted their skin, leaving behind proof of existence, belief, and fear. They didn't just beautify their bodies, they beautified their souls. And across the deep silence of human history, that truth still echoes. Inside every one of us lives a longing to express, to connect, to be remembered. A longing carried by red ochre, from the world's oldest art studios, Blombos Cave and Wonderwerk Cave, all the way to this moment, here, now, as we continue the story they began. And when we step away from those primordial studios of art, Blombos Cave and Wonderwerk Cave, when we walk out of that faint scent of ochre lingering in our imagination, we realize something: the need to create, the desire to adorn ourselves, didn't end with those red strokes on stone. It kept spreading, reaching into smaller things, more delicate things, things that could endure time. When the hands of early Homo sapiens began picking up seashells, tiny teeth, when they drilled holes, threaded cords, and turned them into ornaments, it wasn't just a continuation of art. It was an expansion of identity, of meaning. From the ochre lines brushed across cave walls to the first intricate strands of jewelry, early humans took one more step on their long journey to find beauty. And on the quiet, eternal journey to ask themselves, who am I in this world? When the firelight in the cave began to fade, and when the red of the ochre finally settled into the stone, Homo sapiens, in that long silence stretching across thousands of years, found another way to tell their story. Not just with color, but with small objects that carried the breath of the sea, the mountains, the open plains, shell fragments, animal teeth, tiny bones. That was the moment jewelry, a form of expression deeper than almost anything, appeared and began to spread. At Blombos Cave, once the workshop of red ochre, people discovered tiny seashells drilled through and stained with pigment. Those shells had once rested on the ocean floor, then were pushed to shore by waves, then lifted by a human hand. A hand that knew this shell wasn't food, it wasn't a tool, it couldn't protect anyone from danger, so why pick it up? Why drill a hole? Why paint it red? The answer lies in the heart of what makes us human. The need to be seen, to be recognized, to be marked as a soul of our own. Maybe a mother placed that necklace around her child's neck. Maybe a hunter wore it during the chase, a sign of experience or standing. Or perhaps it was the charm of a young hunter who believed the red of the shell could give him the strength of the sea. We'll never know for certain, but every one of those pierced shells is a breath from the past, a whisper saying, humans had begun to understand themselves. Far to the north, in Grotte des Pigeons in Morocco, the same discoveries emerged. Red-stained shells, carefully prepared, kept within sediment layers like a treasure sealed in time. And here's the remarkable part. Those shells came from a coastline tens of kilometers away, which means something profound. Humans were exchanging goods, or traveling with purpose, to gather materials meant for beauty. Jewelry was no longer decoration, it was becoming a symbol of social connection. A pierced shell was not just something to wear, it was a message. It said, I belong to a group. It said, I am a person of the sea, and I carry a story with me. When we look at those tiny holes, perfectly round, evenly placed, balanced so a cord could rest just right, we have to admit something. This was not instinct. This was craftsmanship. This was technique. This was art. And like ochre, these early ornaments were a form of communication, a way for humans to speak the things words could not yet carry. Across the windy plains where every individual faced danger, hunger, predators, they still carved out time to make themselves beautiful. That tells us something. Beauty was never a luxury after survival. Beauty was part of survival itself. Those first ornaments, strangely enough, endured time more powerfully than almost any skeleton. A skeleton tells us shape, but a shell necklace tells us feeling. It tells us who they loved, who they trusted, what they feared, what they were proud of. Jewelry is culture compressed into an object. We once believed jewelry was an invention of civilization, but no. Civilization began the moment someone decided to drill a small hole through a shell. And then, when we look at all this through the mirror of the present, a quiet thought rises. Are we really so different from them? Today, we wear watches, earrings, necklaces, rings. We infuse them with stories, memories, love, status. A wedding ring, a family pendant. All of them are modern reflections of the Blombos shells, the relics of Morocco. They remind us that culture is not born from civilization. Culture is the substance that makes us human in the first place. If we placed a modern person next to a Homo sapiens from 80,000 years ago, their greatest similarity wouldn't be in bone structure or posture. It would be in the way they carried meaning on their bodies. One wears a gold necklace. The other wears a red-stained shell. But both are saying the same thing. Look at me. See who I am. And then we understand. Jewelry was never just decoration. It was the first song humans composed with their hands. The chapter after ochre in the long journey of shaping identity. It is proof that humans, across all eras, yearn for something no other creature on earth desires: to be seen, to be known, to be remembered. From those ancient art studios to the tiny necklaces they left behind, humanity began writing the story of itself. A story still unfolding even now in the things we choose to wear on our bodies today. When our ancestors first pressed those blocks of red ochre against their skin, they weren't simply decorating their bodies. They were opening a new doorway in human awareness, a quiet yet monumental turning point. Like fire flickering against the walls of an ancient night, those streaks of red marked the leap into symbolic thought. It was the moment humans began telling the story of themselves through symbols carried on their own bodies. From the tiny hole drilled into a seashell to the wash of pigment spread across the skin. These were sentences written in color, not in sound. The cultural meaning behind these discoveries runs far deeper than their humble appearance. First, they reveal the birth of abstract thought, a power unique to modern humans. Body decoration wasn't merely adornment. It showed that Homo sapiens could imagine beauty, could imagine difference, and could imagine the way they appeared in the eyes of others. Those strokes of color were quiet declarations. I belong to this group. I am part of this story. But beyond aesthetics, those stains of ochre hint at social roles and ritual meaning. Many researchers believe They may have marked adulthood, transitions in life that the entire community witnessed. Others suggest the color red, echoing blood and life, may have carried ancient spiritual weight, a layer of protection, a symbol of magic, a sign of presence from an unseen world. In a landscape where danger waited at every turn, a streak of color on the skin may have been an invisible shield of courage. And these practices didn't remain isolated within small family groups. The use of ochre, drilled shells, and early jewelry reveals something extraordinary. Modern humans were already sharing culture. Techniques for drilling, smoothing, stringing beads. These couldn't have survived without teaching and learning, without imitation and improvement. This means that nearly 100,000 years ago, along the coasts where small bands of humans lived, streams of ideas were already flowing. Cultural pathways, far older than agriculture, far older than writing, were forming. People weren't just trading food or shelter, they were exchanging ways to express themselves. In the end, those tiny ornaments and ancient stains of red ochre were never simply tools of beauty. They were evidence of a spiritual life beginning to bloom. They reflected complexity of thought, the power of symbolism, the glue of social belonging, and the deep human desire to be seen in ways that go beyond mere survival. In the vast portrait of human history, these artifacts are the first whispers of art, the opening footsteps on the long journey humans would take to understand the world and to understand themselves. Today, when we look into a mirror, adjust our hair, choose a necklace, touch a bit of color to our lips or skin, we think it's just habit, just a modern ritual, a small, ordinary part of being human. But if we step back far enough, if we look through tens of thousands of years, a softer, deeper truth begins to appear. Every gesture, no matter how small, carries the inheritance of those ancient hands that once pressed red ochre onto skin, that once drilled tiny holes into seashells to craft the first jewelry our species ever knew. The beauty we seek today began in the moment our ancestors realized they wanted to be different. They wanted to be seen. They wanted to feel themselves as something more than creatures surviving another day. And in a quiet way, they found themselves in the red dust of an ancient earth. Imagine it. In the cool blue dawn over the African savanna, a Homo sapiens bends down, picks up a piece of red ochre, grinds it between two stones, then touches a streak of color onto their forehead. In that moment, it wasn't beauty, it was awakening, self-recognition, the birth of the self. And from that moment, everything began to change. Adornment stopped being personal. It became language, a silent language strong enough to tell an entire community who someone was, where they belonged, what they longed for. A hunter might wear a pendant carved from antelope teeth to show skill. A young woman entering adulthood might paint a special line of red down her arm to mark the transition. A shaman might wear intricate markings across the face, declarations of power, of connection to the spirit world. This was the moment when jewelry and ochre became the first seeds of social structure, and from those seeds, humanity grew a forest of roles: leaders, teachers, warriors, healers, storytellers, not through words, but through symbols, through lines, through colors, through small objects worn on the body. From there, we moved toward rituals, toward laws, toward traditions, all of it growing from the moment a human held a piece of red stone and decided, I want to look different than I did yesterday. But the most important part was never beauty nor status. It was meaning, the human ability to see an object and understand that it can represent something larger than itself. A streak of ochre could be love, could be pain, could be a rite of passage. A strand of beads could whisper of ancestors, of protection, of belonging. The moment humans created symbols, they created the spiritual world, a world that would lead them to abstract language, art, religion, myth, ideology, and every invisible structure we live inside today. Think about it. Every modern symbol, from a tech company's logo to the markers of a nation, is a distant descendant of that first streak of red. But perhaps the most miraculous part is the endless river of learning that beauty set in motion. To grind ochre, to drill shells, someone had to teach, someone had to learn, someone had to watch, imitate, practice, improve. Those early communities learned how to teach each other. And in that moment, culture was born. Not the culture we think of now, not books, not music, not film, but collective memory, the flow of ideas passing from person to person, group to group, across continents, across thousands of generations. Today, when fashion trends travel the world in a matter of hours, we forget that this ability dates back to the first humans who shared the skill of shaping a shell into a necklace. We are the result of that ancient river, and the most profound truth is this: these small acts brought humans closer together. A streak of ochre on the face could give someone courage. A necklace could make someone feel they belonged. A red mark on the skin could soothe the fear before a hunt or before a passage into adulthood. Humans understood each other through color, through pattern, through form. Through the things they wore on their bodies, they found comfort, connection, empathy. Today, when we choose a shirt to impress, when we wear makeup to feel stronger, when we tattoo a symbol to hold a memory, we are simply extending a tradition older than civilization, the tradition of seeking connection. And so, when we look at those drilled shells, those blocks of ochre from Blombos Cave, those ancient ritual marks, we are not looking into the past. We are looking into the foundations of our own psychology. We adorn ourselves because we want to be seen. We wear jewelry because we want to be remembered. We paint our bodies because we want to be understood. And above all, because we seek a place in the vastness of the world. From a streak of red ochre 100,000 years ago to the neon-lit cities reflecting off glass towers today, it is all one journey, the journey of humans making meaning out of their existence. We are the artists continuing the painting our ancestors began at the dawn of our species. Today, when we look at the world of jewelry and beauty, we're witnessing a peak of human creativity that our ancestors, the ones who once crushed ochre in the shadows of Blombos Cave, could never have imagined. The modern world has turned the need to feel beautiful into an enormous ecosystem. Science, art, technology, medicine, psychology, all weaving together to form an industry worth trillions. But if you peel back the layers, the laboratory lights, the cutting-edge cosmetic techniques, the exquisitely cut diamonds, you'll find a simple truth underneath. Everything began with a very ancient dream, a dream to become more beautiful, a dream to feel more meaningful in the eyes of others. Thanks to advances in material science, we can now create lab-grown diamonds so perfect the human eye can't tell them from those forged in the earth. Nanotechnology can turn makeup into a mist, light as morning fog, yet strong enough to protect the skin, bend light, even react intelligently to body temperature. Aesthetic medicine has shifted too, from heavy invasive procedures to gentle therapies, molecular lasers, stem cells, collagen regeneration, things that would have sounded like science fiction just a century ago. Jewelry has reached its own turning point. From gold, silver, and gemstones, we've expanded into titanium, high-tech ceramics, carbon fiber, smart alloys, shape memory metals. And a bracelet today isn't only decoration. It can track a heartbeat, measure your movement, even call for help. Modern jewelry has become a fusion of art and engineering. Delicate, intelligent, a symbol of an age where beauty meets the digital. The beauty industry has evolved so far that it can now adjust things nature never granted, reshape the proportions of a face, use 3D printing in dentistry and cosmetic surgery, create personalized formulas based on each person's DNA. In laboratories, scientists study skin pigments, the structure of individual hair fibers, the biological rhythms inside each cell, to craft products designed for one specific human being, as if they were building a blueprint of a soul. And yet, despite all these dazzling achievements, something hasn't changed. When someone chooses a perfume, slips on a bracelet, or tries a new shade of lipstick, they're still doing what our ancestors did 100,000 years ago, sending a signal to the world, saying, "This is me, see me. Let me tell you something about who I am." Science may reshape the tools, technology may push the boundaries, but the deepest impulse, the need to claim an identity, to reach for connection, to plant a small seed of beauty so life feels a little sweeter, that has never changed. From red ochre smeared on skin in Blombos Cave to modern operating rooms to jewelers carving with lasers, these are just different chapters of the same long story. The story of humans reaching for beauty, and through it, reaching for the meaning of existence itself.